Whether you're choking the chicken or you're flicking the bean, every time you hit your fun button, you make it harder to feel happy and balanced when you are not hitting your fun button. No-fap is the age-old practice of semen retention. I see a lot of confusion and misunderstanding in this area, so let's talk about it. First of all, I don't like the name NoFap. Less fap or intermittent fapping seems like a more accurate way of describing and working towards balance. Frequent masturbation, especially every day, is at one end of the spectrum over here. That's one extreme. And then we have total abstinence from orgasm of any kind, or literal no-fap, at the other end of the spectrum, the other extreme. On its own, masturbation is not over-the-top stimulating. But when we bring in an endless stream of high-resolution, highly stimulating images, the activity becomes even more spectacular, more dopamine intense, and more overstimulating, which raises the baseline amount of stimulation you need in order to feel good when you are not doing this. Bringing in motorized equipment has a similar effect. Porn really takes self-gratification to a whole new level. When you indulge in it every day, you need more and more stimulus to get yourself excited and satisfy yourself. It might get to a point where seeing a dozen naked women getting dirty is not stimulating enough. You need to see even more naked women, and they need to be even dirtier than the last ones. This sort of tolerance is not much different than other drugs. Porn is being used to release your own feel-good drug cocktail from your own body, which creates drug dependency, not much different than relying on an external drug source. I went over all this stuff on day 2 when I went over the dopamine reward system. You create a peak experience for yourself, a dopamine high point, which adjusts your baseline and makes your system require more dopamine present in order to feel happy and balanced when you're not gratifying yourself. Whether you're polishing your knob or you're rubbing on the nubbin, it's the same effect. You stimulate your dopamine receptors so much that they have to turn down the volume, so now you need more dopamine to even feel the same as you did before. Taking a long break of 30+ days might actually be a good idea for some. There's definitely a hump to get over. I couldn't go more than 3 days without getting blue balls back when I was letting my sex drive run my life. After my first prolonged fapping break of about 45 days, I turned down my sex drive significantly and had more mental and physical energy to put into other more useful things. It was truly liberating to not be horny and thinking about sex all the time. But I had to go without for a while to break the habituation. And holy cow, was that a deep habituation ingrained in my mind and body. The first time I went more than a week without releasing, I had to ice up my blue balls every morning and every night. No joke. Then finally, after a week or two of that, the psychological urges subsided and the physical, let's call it overproduction in that area, subsided as well. The physical and mental energy started going elsewhere. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel horny and preoccupied with sex. I felt hungry and driven towards things I knew I should be doing with my life. It's as if all that mental and physical energy went from pursuing sex to pursuing other more important things. Focusing on your life purpose and ignoring women has a paradoxical way of attracting women. It's counterintuitive. There are tangible reasons for this, but there's also something mystical about semen retention. It changes your mindset. It changes your vibe. It changes the energy that you emanate. Once you break the cycle, it drops the neediness from your vibe. You'll feel, seem, and act less weak and less needy. This is masculine energy. It helps to turn you into the kind of person who is happy and well-balanced on their own. This is a very attractive quality that not many people have. Women pick up on this stuff better than men do. If you're spending a good chunk of time every day doing the deed, you can only go a couple different ways with it. Some of you may actually do better if you take a longer abstinence break of 30 days or more, like I described earlier. Make sure you've got enough ice though. If you don't think cold turkey is for you, build your practice gradually and keep adding more and more time between your releases. Perhaps start with a rule like no consecutive days. Give your body time to recover and a chance to send nutrition to other parts of the body that might be able to do something more useful with it. As a guy, your body is going to prioritize your nut busting and make sure your semen production is near the front of the line for incoming vitamins, minerals, and necessary nutrition. If you give yourself 1 day in between, then 2 days, then 3, you'll also be resensitizing yourself, and for most people, your orgasms will be better after you wait a while. Eventually you'll be up to a week, then 2, and so on, at your own pace. Approach this like the dietary or dopamine fasting that I went over already. When it's time for release, don't binge and turn it into some hour-long jerk session with some super stimulating porn. If it's been a while, you're probably going to be really sensitive, and it's going to feel great and release a huge amount of dopamine, among other things, which is undoing the work that you've put into resensitizing your dopamine receptors. If you then blast your dopamine receptors with a prolonged session, you're really taking steps backwards. Go ahead and do your deed, but keep it short and sweet. Sex drive usually correlates with age. It also depends on how much you've been using it. Older guys will find it easier to go longer periods without being so horny. Younger guys, or guys who are simply habituated to a daily dolphin flogging, will have a harder time going longer in between, but will yield a greater reward by rebalancing their reward system. Being in a relationship with a companion and a sexual partner is going to be a good thing for most people. You'll get tired of each other soon enough. The banging like bunnies on honeymoon phase of a relationship usually runs its course. Then the sex gets more spread out, and it can even become more meaningful and special when it does happen. You'll get a nice serotonin and oxytocin release during and after sex with a partner. You'll get some by yourself, but it's not the same. Being in a relationship can really help dial back dopamine urges for more and more, and can help us feel happy and satisfied with where we're at in the present moment. Almost by definition, dopamine-driven activities will never keep you satisfied and fulfilled in the present moment. Dopamine is your body's drug of more. Happy in the present moment feel-good drugs like serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins are needed to help balance out the dopamine-driven go-go-go system. These drugs help you sit back and relax after a long day, feel good about yourself, feel good about what you've done, and most importantly, feel good about sitting, relaxing, and enjoying a meal or a fireplace with the people that you care about. Those who are primarily dopamine-driven will usually need to add something extra to make these wonderful activities even more wonderful. It's not enjoyable enough to sit and enjoy a good meal with good company. There must also be a TV on, or an indulgent meal, or a tasty dessert treat on the way. That's what dopamine does when it wires into your primary operating system. You always need more to be happy, and even that may not be enough. Dopamine is the drug that makes you want to go off and get your next meal while the first one is still right in front of you. There are many other things you can be doing with your sexual energy. Sexual energy is very close to universal energy that can be used for just about anything. But don't stress yourself out over abstaining from jerking off. There are probably more destructive things in your life to focus on first. All that being said, am I recommending no-fap as a lifestyle? Not quite. I'm recommending intermittent fapping as a lifestyle. Stop doing it so often. There is definitely a point of diminishing returns where you're not getting much out of it and the downsides outweigh the upside.